I've fought fires in the US. This is what 28 or 29 other fire and emergency chiefs, former chiefs, and I tried to warn the Prime Minister about back in April and May, and we weren't listened to.
What could he have done?
A lot. Now, you see the military, if you look back, we made a number of suggestions to use the military in a more organised and less ad hoc fashion. The answer was, that's a stupid idea. And they misquoted what we'd said and said, look, everybody knows soldiers can't fight fires, but then eventually they were forced into using the ADF. We said that there needed to be more funding for firefighting aircraft. He said that's a stupid idea. They've got enough. The current chiefs are telling me they've got enough, which wasn't true, because they'd put in a detailed business case pleading for more funding 2 years ago, which is still sitting on the desk in Canberra. Was forced to put in another $11 million, which is too little too late. So the response to this, and look, I have to say, I've got to watch what I say because I'm very tired. I've been at multiple fires. I was at Bargo on the night when the two firefighter colleagues were killed. I've been at Blackheath, I've been at Grafton, I've been at Howes Valley. I've been all around the state fighting fires, and I'm getting pretty fatigued, so I have to watch what I say, but I'm angry about the Prime Minister's response. It reminds me of President Trump when there's multiple shootings, saying it's nothing to do with guns. He won't talk about guns. We have to talk about climate change because our bushfire situation in Australia has changed forever. It's been a 20-year process. People in the business like me have watched it with horror, spoken to the Bureau of Meteorology, CSIRO and scientists and said, what the hell is going on? And they said, here it is, but we're not being listened to. So everything I hear from the government is, we're doing this, aren't we good? Yeah, too late, guys. There's so much to do, but we've been fobbed off. So I've worked with multiple Prime Ministers through my career. Prime Minister Howard, Abbott, Rudd, Gillard. We had disasters like the New Zealand earthquake, the Japan earthquake and tsunami, the Indian Ocean tsunami, sending aid overseas. We had the Lindt Cafe siege, and I watched Prime Ministers step up into leadership roles, and they were asking constantly, what's needed, what can we do? And there was no political partisanship. They were working with the opposition leader. I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it, and I don't understand it. And you're dead right. Now, our Prime Minister should be on the phone to Justin Trudeau from Canada right now saying, Justin, we need 20 or more of your water-scooping, purpose-built water bombers that are in mothballs during your winter. Get them down here. Can you get them here in 5 days? At Bateman's Bay the other day, and this is no criticism of the fire agencies, all we have is 7 large air tankers in Australia. I was in California in November at the Kincaid fire up at Sonoma County. They had, was 23, it would have been 35 large air tankers working that fire, plus dozens of helicopters. Now, we have lots of helicopters. I heard the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, and I found it very odd. So he quoted numbers of aircraft, but they're little helicopters and little crop dusting aircraft. The big ones, we've got 7. We need more, but the fire chiefs, frankly, have their hands full dealing with this. They don't want to ask because the political masters will not like it, and I know from being in government, sometimes treasuries get square after the event. So they're just trying to deal with what they're dealing with. They're not going to say, oh, yes, we need more. The government should be proactive, and I believe that's what our Prime Minister should be doing, is ringing around countries like France, Portugal, Spain, Canada that have all these purpose-built water-scooping aircraft that don't need to land to fill up, so they've got rapid turnaround, there's 6,000 litres. That's a practical sort of thing. Yesterday, what really got me was the Prime Minister said a couple of times, these are natural disasters. They're natural. Sorry, Prime Minister, they're not. This is not. We've lost 600% more homes in New South Wales than our worst ever fire season since European settlement. 600% more, and we're going to lose so many more tomorrow. I'll probably be down there again. When is the penny going to drop with this guy?
One of the refrains that you hear coming out of the right and conservative talk media at the moment is about fuel management and about backburning, about that there's been a push by Greenies not to manage fuel and to do proper backburns, and that's to blame for this. Is there any credibility in that?
None whatsoever. So I was watching fires run across people's lawns in Bateman's Bay with 1 metre high flames. So in extreme conditions, in an extreme drought, now this is a drought that's underpinned by 20 years of drying, so 15 to 20% reduction in rainfall on the south coast of New South Wales, the eastern coast of New South Wales, over 20 years. So when the drought hits, it's that more intense. Now, everything burns, and I won't go into the chemistry and the physics of this, but it's actually very simple. So there's more available fuel. Now, I saw a fire up near Rapville at Grafton. We were called to a fire, and the locals said it burnt through 2 weeks ago. We got there, and the burnt leaves from the trees had dropped on the ground, and they were burning again. 1 metre flames. We had a hectare of leaf dropper lights. So in extreme conditions like this, and there's been lots of hazard reductions done over the years, more done by national parks than in previous years. But the fires have burnt through those hazard-reduced areas. So this is the blame game. So we'll blame arsonists, we'll blame greenies. It's a holistic thing. There's a whole lot of different things that need to come into the picture. But my answer to the Prime Minister about the climate change thing is, so it's okay to doom future generations to even worse, is it? It's a moral thing, an ethical thing, and we can't say to the US, China, India, Brazil, we can't stand up like we did with nuclear disarmament and other international issues and say, we've done the right thing, now you need to. We're burning, you've got to do your bit for the world. Prime Minister Howard made an agreement with us in 2003, dollar for dollar, to lease aircraft. That amount was never increased. So the states and territories now pay 10 times what the federal government pay. So the fire chiefs pleaded, while I was still the head of our peak body, AFAC. I was president of AFAC, so full fire and emergency services in Australia and New Zealand. We were pleading with the federal government to just kick the tin a bit more. A detailed business case has languished in Canberra for 2 years. And then belatedly a couple of weeks ago, I think, to get the government off the hook, they said, oh, look, we'll give a one-off payment of $11 million. Well, too late, guys. we weren't able to negotiate the leases, but more is needed. Exactly what we predicted. All states are starting to burn. When they burn simultaneously, we can't share firefighters, we can't share trucks, and we're going to have, we'll have one major aircraft in each state, and that's not going to do any good when you've got 100 fires alone in New South Wales.
I mean, if you're right that it is a financial impediment, then that is absolutely and totally shameful, and also not just shameful, but a political non-starter as well. I mean, I hope that you're wrong. I hope that that's overly cynical, because I haven't done a poll in the field, Greg, but I am absolutely certain that if you polled Australians about whether or not we should be taking financial considerations into account in our response to these fires, there would be very, very few people who would say that we should allow these fires to burn a second longer than necessary and burn an additional single square kilometre as a result of the fact that we don't want to spend money on it.
Well, I can hear you being a bit angry. I'm furious because that is the case, and you keep hearing the government saying it's a state and territory responsibility. This is a national disaster. Every state is starting to burn. We don't have enough large aircraft. By the way, large aircraft don't put out fires. They can just give the firefighters on the ground an edge. But if you had 20, 30 of these medium-sized aircraft that have rapid turnaround, you could make a material difference. I've worked with them in France, in Spain, in Canada, and in Los Angeles, and I've seen them at work. And there's dozens of them available with pilots, with air traffic controllers. And I know, as you said, if it was a military operation, other countries would send their air force, i.e. their firefighting aeroplanes, to help us. But our Prime Minister is saying the chiefs haven't asked. Well, of course they're not going to ask. They're up to their armpits in work, and they don't want to get into a political debate. what we're trying to get across these strategic concepts to a government with 10 ears, and they've downgraded Emergency Management Australia. It's buried in Homeland Security now. It used to be a more high-profile organisation. They do an incredible job, the people in there, and I know the people there. But the system needs a major overhaul because things have changed. So when this is over, that's why the former chiefs and I had to come out a couple of weeks ago and say, look, we'll hold a summit. If the government's not going to do it, they refuse to do it. And if you notice, every step of the way, there was another one. We called on the Prime Minister to have a bipartisan approach, and he said it's not needed, it's fine. Now he said he'll have a COAG process, as Anthony Albanese had requested in November. He has to be forced every inch of the way. I remember going to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina and talking to the fire chief, and they were just appalled at President Bush, how he sat in Washington and just sat on his hands. And this is reminiscent of that to me.
Greg, good on you. We appreciate everything that you're doing. I know you're exhausted. We're all a bit exhausted, but not as exhausted as you. Thanks for filling us in.
Thanks, Josh.
You got it. That's Greg Mullins, who's the former New South Wales Fire and Rescue Commissioner.